Happy New Year, guys. And it is the first Which Is Better of 2022, and it's a Metallica special, Load or Reload. And before I continue, I'm going to leave links in the description to check out songs by Machine Head, as well as links to check out my Instagram page and Twitter page, where you get to see what my band merch collection looks like and what songs I'm listening to on a daily basis. So looking at the Load album, it's probably Metallica's most noteworthy album. Is unquestionably the Black Album, but amongst metal fans, the holy trinity of Metallica albums are 1 to 3. Compromise was hard to find, and it was no surprise that they became such a big name in the metal underground. And Justice for All was an outstanding album because it was an extremely grueling tour de force of embryonic progressive thrash metal. But there is no one around who would consider the album to be radio friendly. And this album, Load, follows in this style because of its musical progression from what came before, because once again it's a case of no compromise. It's a thrash album, but with a difference being its mid-tempo grooves and only the opener and a few scan sections really open throttle and not sounding anything like Fight Fire with Fire. First of all, it's a marathon record, clocking in at something like around 78 minutes, and although it has a few radio-ready singles like Hero of the Day and King Nothing, and even Until It Sleeps, they find a way in between the marathon epics and the off-kilter experimentation. The album is all about slow-burning momentum, in the same way a doom metal record is, even if the sounds are worlds apart. It's almost overwhelming because it's loose, and the bassy state that slowly smothers the listener as it rolls inexorably from solid riff to riff. And in the midst of such a bunch of strange acoustic intros anyway, numbers from the Tombstone Gloom of Mama Said to the bouncy progression of Waste My Hate, that along with Ain't My Bitch and Cure proves the album does indeed pack a punch. Also, not on the rare, or in the albums anyway, flashes of humour on Poor Twisted Me and a self-pitying paean to those who swim in depression, and I'm definitely looking at you, Miss Rubber Suicide Razor. This album enjoys some of the best production Metallica has had, less than the ultra-produced, self-titled, but thankfully more than the non-production of Saint Anger, and even a Justice for All to a certain degree. And the album is staringly heavy, probably because of Jason Newsted, and for that matter, the bass guitar. It finally feels like as if he has an equal part in the mix. Out on Law is an epic that can stand up to the biggest of classics of yesteryear and look it right in the eye. The whole song has a dramatic sweep that you feel lost in, and the majestic Behind Blue Eyes style climax was made for the stage, eclipsed by only the live SMM version. The song Bleeding Me is another one of those songs that nails you to the floor, particularly the godly metallic break that underscores the metal in Metallica. Something admittedly missing from this record. Finally, a mention must be made for Ronnie, a booze and blues groove that features a nasty riff and a sing-along melody that sticks in my mind for miles and miles and miles. This album is really a brave step for Metallica. Compromise would be sticking to out-and-out metal if it wasn't what the band felt like playing. Through the myriad of twists and turns of the catalogue, they really give the impression of writing for the sake of money or fame. Conventional wisdom following the success of the Black Album would be more on the same. Instead, we get this smoky, low, slung, weighty album of earth tones and withering energy. On Reload, they showed us more of an alternative metal face, less about personal problems and more unconventionally and charming songs. After that, they made a move that flew in the face of convention and released the Charge You Through Your Saint Anger. Now, Metallica may not be the same band that they were back in 1983, but the spirit of the integrity persists and shines through to this very day. Switching gears, we're going to look at the Reload album. Now, most would say they only like Metallica's first 4 albums, and it's a phrase which is constantly heard when discussing this band. It's a statement usually taken to mean that the metalhead in question is truly, absolutely only into metal and will take none of the stuff that sounds like supposedly from a sellout. that they can only enjoy, of course, the early freshman albums that Metallica put out. And it is a matter of them being pure and unscathed by the forthcoming commercial breakthrough that culminated in the sellout albums that followed. It is because of their songwriting and riff work prowess was inherently superior, or is it simply because they were metal? Now, I'm not here to make a case for or against. Everybody has listened to them, everybody knows what they sound like, and consequently everybody has differing opinions about them. Maybe you only like the first two, maybe you only like the debut, maybe you just don't like them all, but in the grand scheme of things it doesn't really matter. In any case, there's this widely shared view by the metal community claiming that And Justice for All is the band's album where the quality of music started to go downhill. Maybe some fans still like their self-titled or some tracks out of it, since it's even poppy and commercial, but it's still metal. However, once you get past that, very few actually find some worth in the previous album, Load. The music is very mispaced for the most part. However, instead of opting to go for the chug chug Pantera style riffing, which was so popular at the time, the riffs are very bluesy and they have a distinct melancholic rocking sound to them. Load had the issue of being sometimes too ambitious for its own good, and as the band weren't used to playing some of their styles in it. However, this one mixes bare bones of rock stripped down to the elements which were easier to arrange with a couple of experimental tracks. A consequence is that there is too little to no filter here. Every song has, for the most part, main riffs coupled with one or two other riffs that mostly just play off motifs from the main one, giving the song an overall sense of cohesion. To put it in better terms, on the other albums, the band just went way over their heads on what they could accomplish musically, which is why some of the sections simply just don't work out in the end. But on Reload, they already had years of experience on their shoulders, and at the same time they were trying out for a very simple approach regarding the riff work, songwriting and the performances. Therefore they excelled at it by turning it down. A good example of this is the improvement of turning it down is Lars Ulrich's drumming. He adopted a very minimalist style for both Load and Reload, resulting in a performance that not only made much more sense given his abilities, but is also infinitely more enjoyable because of his metal background allowed him to play a particular groove that wouldn't have worked out right if it was a standard rock drummer. The drums also have a very wide resounding sound space which allows them to shine without getting too bright, but like they did on the Black album. This is especially true for the sound of the kick drum, which is tribally per usual but doesn't get rough on the ears because especially true for the sound of there are pretty much no double bass drumming parts whatsoever, aside from a couple of seconds on Fuel and Bad Seed, and then they do appear, but they're slow and giving the music something that I can only describe as a marching feel. Instead of the tick 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 produced by the stream of the 16th notes that played Justice for All, coupled by the fact that the album is pretty mid-paced overall, means Lars' performance and sound fits much better than on other albums, actively complementing the riff work while having a few moments to shine by itself. The drummer has a very interesting interplay with the bass. Jason Newsted is a good enough bass player, and he has a very rough tone here. Not only is he able to work around the low end by playing around the drums patterns, but he will sometimes start playing a bass line different from the guitar riffs, but in a way which means both the rhythmic and melodic parts. His work on Devil's Dance and The Memory Remains is particularly a standout as it most varied and probably the coolest to listen to, but his dark, brooding bass lines on Fixer are really enjoyable. I listened to the album a couple of times already, and I've already found some little melodies in the background that are subtle and you wouldn't notice them without headphones, and yet so essential such sections would feel half empty without them. Kirk turns down considerably on his overuse of the wah-wah pedal, instead opted for a very tasteful mix of bluesy platonic scale, soloing and slower, more emotional sections. His solos on Unforgiven 2 and Carpe Diem Baby are very good examples of this, probably among my favourites. There are layers of the guitars in the background here, and they work surprisingly well, even if they're subtle. You can't actually notice them without actually looking for them, considering Kirk's career. I would have never thought of them in a subtle guitarist. Early on, they mostly just lapsed into the wheelie doos and wahs and wheeze and whenever he wanted, regardless of their place in the songs. Take this over on Where the Wild Things Are. It's much slower than usually plays, and it's very short and to the point, given the context and the theme of the song. His use of the wah pedal sounds downright frightening because of it. However, in spite of the brilliant performances present, it's the songwriting and arrangements that really do the album justice. The songs are medium length on average, not being either too short or too long for the most part, which allows them to build up their themes comfortably, and there's a lot of variation, even if it's at the core of a simple album. From the sing-alongs like Fuel, which I love to sing along to, even if much of the lyrics are James Halbershine, Yeah and Hey Yeah, to pretty ballads like Unforgiven 2 and Low Man's Lyric, which are actually quite different from each other. The former is the best power ballad in their career, while the latter sounds closer to a dark bluesy song. I really like that. Even, and I quote, "All I want is forgive me," something along those lines, section which on it also features something akin to Hetfield trying to do a southern accent or something, which I guess works considering the general vibe of the track. Carpe Diem Baby is probably my favorite track on the album because it manages to pretty much all of these elements in the fashion of a dark light interplay, even despite the lyrics not being all that. I know Hetfield's singing lessons really came to shine with him giving off the single best performance vocal in his entire career. So there you have it, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought was the better album. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.